Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. I've made lots of videos all about colour theory, but I especially love to make these videos where I pick apart a painting that I've already done and explain my colour choices in terms of colour theory. I feel that it's one thing to learn the information surrounding colour theory, but it's another to actually apply it in your own work. And that's what I hope I can share with you today. If you find this helpful, then please do check out some of my other videos, especially my colour theory playlist. And I would love if you would subscribe to me here on YouTube, show my channel some support, help it grow. And then if you want even more pastel tuition, check me out over on Patreon, where you can gain access to my full catalogue of real-time tutorials. I painted this beautiful dog as a demo for The Artist magazine, and now it also gave me the opportunity to paint my friend's dog and gift this to her, which I've been meaning to do for ages. And that meant that because I know the dog, I also got to photograph the dog and really plan this piece from the very start. Part of my plan was to enhance the colours in the painting by pushing and playing with complementary colours. It was no fluke that I decided on a beach background, as it brings in the same complementary relationship within the colours. Blue was going to feature in the dog because of that beautiful blue eye, but it was also going to feature within the fur in the shadow areas. So it's nice that I can make more of an impact with the blue in the sky. In this video, I want to break my palette down and show you why I chose the colours for this piece. Spending a little time at the beginning to pick out some colours before you start, it makes my choices more considered and less random, and it gives me a better shot at creating some nice colour harmony. I've made a few videos now where I talk about how I incorporate colour theory into my palette. And each time I mention two main considerations that I have when analysing colour. The tonal value, so how light or dark the colour is, and colour temperature, how warm or cool the colour appears. That helps me a lot when deciding on what colours to choose. But firstly, I look at the photo reference, and in this case, there is strong sunlight casting shadows. And that's always good news to me because I love creating strong contrast between light and shade. I immediately determine where the sunlight is falling on the dog, and in this case most of the dog is in shadow, just the outer left side here catching the light coming from the left. I know that when I'm choosing my colours now, I need to treat these areas differently. I want them to have common colours to tie it all together, but I want the tonal value of this left side in sunlight to be much lighter and warmer. Then on the shadow side, I know I can introduce some cooler tones to create the shadow effect, but the dog is such a warm colour. I know I still need the shadow areas to look a little bit warm. Well, that seems contradictory, doesn't it? I want cool but warm shadows. Well, let's have a look at the colours that I chose, and I'll see if I can explain my colour choices better. I can start with the extremes and look at the darkest and the brightest values first. In this case, I know I'll need some dark browns within the fur, and the darkest value will be black. That's usually a given. And when I look at the brightest values in the piece, I'm singling out this left side of the dog. I think that looks pretty bright, and I can bring in something close to pure white. In this case, I choose Unison's Grey 27, which is almost white, but with a little hint of yellow to it, so that my brightest value won't be as stark and cold as pure white, but will have this added warmth coming from that yellow tint. So that's simple. The two extremes are covered, darkest and brightest. Now the bit that's more difficult, all the colours in between. Well, let's look at the sunlit areas of the fur. There isn't much of it, in fact, but in this small area to the top left, I can see a range of warm brown earth, kind of orange tones and yellow tones. I always find the sunlit areas the easiest to analyse, and it's the shadows where colour begins to behave differently. As we come right down the neck, it will be the lighter end of my tonal values and warm tones only to signify that warm sunshine. The shadow side of the dog appears to be where all the action is in terms of colour. Here I know I need to go darker overall, and this gives me the opportunity to include some rich, dark, red and brown earths. All of that will keep the coat underneath looking nice and warm. But if I stick with just warm oranges and reds, my shadows won't look very convincing. And that's where I start to bring in some complementary colours within the fur. I'm using lots of orange-based colours in the fur, so I automatically think of including some blues, the complementary colour. This small range of colours helps me create a lot of the cool effect happening in the shadow areas. We have the blues that I used in the sky, and they can be repeated in the eye, of course, but they're also going right through the fur in the shadows. I also include this grey-green. The green tinted grey is like a stepping stone between my warm yellows and oranges and the cool blues. I imagine this colour coming from the cool shadow light mixing with the warm tones on the dog. If we compare the hairs inside the two ears, on the left in sunlight these hairs shine brightly, and I used that grey 27 close to pure white. But within the shadows I'm using a blue tone for these hairs. That's a lot darker than white and a cool tone. On the rest of the fur, I'm mixing in some of the warm tones from the sunlit areas, but also a more subtle warm tone, A27. This colour features a lot on the light chest area where the fur is mostly white in the sunlight. Look how much darker this area looks behind the shadow line. The lighter blue and the green tinted grey are useful here, but I'm always careful to bring in lots of warm tones throughout this area too. Just mixing in some cool tones here does the trick. The fur is often something that I look at first in the photo reference because that's usually where I put a load of different colours that I want to work nicely together. Once I have that decided on, I can look at other areas like the open mouth. I will now try to reuse as many of the colours I've already chosen in this area too. Lots of the light values can be used again on the teeth, the cool blue-violet on the tongue. But I also think I'll need some pink, red and purple tones for the tongue and the gums. It's okay to bring in extra colours, of course, but the more I can use what I've already used before, the better the colour harmony. The same purples that I've chosen for the tongue can be used on the nose and inside the ear as well, so they don't just appear in the mouth. So there we have a good selection of colours covering a range of tonal values from light through to dark, and both warm and cool tones too. The more I sit and analyse my photo reference like this, the better I get at choosing a good palette of colours. And it's something that I recommend to everyone to try out. Just always remember to think of colour value and colour temperature. I hope you find this helpful. I always find that it helps some elements of colour theory really click when you see it in action, and I hope that these ideas might filter into some of your future paintings. And if you did find this helpful, then please do help me out by subscribing to me here on YouTube, and also check out my full tutorials library on my website emmacolbertart.com, where you can browse everything I have available on my Patreon channel, where for a small monthly subscription you can unlock my full catalogue of content and join the growing and supportive community we've got over there. But thanks very much for watching this here, and until next time, happy pasteling.